never met someone who deserves the day the way that you do. Joseph, it's time to get ready and the spotlight's shining down upon you. Joseph, so be fast, oh far. I'm on my way, yeah, here it comes. And I'm delivering a wish to you, so get ready, from every peak and valley they're telling you to get ready, cause here it comes. It's on the way. It's a celebration across the nation.
Hello, how y'all doing? Hi, Joseph. I hear that you have a show, not famous, and wish you good luck with your show, and I thank you what you're doing for your audience and your people that you're trying to make impression on their life. So good luck with your show, and thank you for all you do. Bye, Joseph.
Am I being overconfident? Am I becoming complacent about complacency?
I think you are.
Oh, he's not the Messiah, he's just a very naughty boy.
Yeah, I've got big ears.
Brian doesn't want to see anyone else. Piss off!
That's the one, because you literally complete me, and we complete each other.
You've obviously encountered discrimination in your own life by virtue of being Australian.
Hey, Manuel Kant was a real pissant who was very rarely stable.
I don't want to get too gushy, but I might just be saying you complete me, Dean. PNG now stands for Pritchard and Good.
Branding is not a bad blind date. Look at you! You are insane!
How did I do that?
You're
How
insane!
did I do that? You're insane! Wait. Do you hear that rock music? I think it's time for a little bit of headbanging. I am experimenting with something new, which is a new feature in the software that I use called StreamYard. In fact, I make it a bit louder now. Yeah, it's louder. I'm gonna go back softer. But this is very cool. This is cool that now, for the first time, I have backing tracks, I have music that I can take on the road with me, as opposed to my Roadcaster, which, it's a little bit more bulkier and doesn't always fit into the overhead stowage. I mean, what would I know? I don't fly anymore. My biggest commute is from my bedroom to the global headquarters of Joseph Jaffe's Not Famous. Hello, everybody. It's Monday. It's January 31st. It is the last day already of the month of 2022. Can you believe it? Do you like a little bit of rock music? I am wearing my kind of rock and or roll garb today. If you are listening to the podcast right now, this is available as an audio podcast. It is available to you right now through the Marketing Podcast Network. All you have to do is search for Joseph Jaffe is Not Famous wherever podcasts are found, and listen to this maybe on your commute. Also, remember, we're building a revolution. We're building a community. We're building a Discord. We are reinventing the talk show, and live is a big part of it. So when you subscribe to the show, when you join the Discord, beautiful things will happen. Amazing things will happen. You will be able to get some Jaffe coin. In fact, right now, from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m., and you know this, if you're a regular and if you're new to the show, that QR code that you see on your screen right now, that QR code will send you some free Jaffe coin, my cryptocurrency. You will get it just by watching the show live. Jimmy Fallon doesn't do it. Jimmy Kimmel doesn't do it. Stephen Colbert doesn't do it. Trevor Noah doesn't do it, but I do it because I care about you and I care about my community, our community. It's not mine. I don't own it. I just belong to it, just like you do as well. So a little bit of an overview, and when you get into the Discord server, just go and look at the giveaways channel and you will find out how to claim these airdrops, these Jaffe coin airdrops. You'll also find out how to win an NFT. Every single week I will be giving away an NFT. It's another way for you to get involved. Not bad for a little startup talk show. Well, today, being Monday, we kick it off with Kison Patel, Shelley Palmer, Margaret Malloy, and Dr. Fred Moss in the house. Boy, oh boy, do we have an incredible lineup. No one more famous, though, than Kison Patel. He's the CEO and founder of M&A Science. And on NFT Fridays, we've got a little bit of the Diamond Dogs in the house. Evan Mendoza, he is a starting pitcher for the St. Louis Cardinals, and he also has an awesome, I think he's a starting pitcher. He has an awesome NFT collection called the Diamond Dogs. That is my Diamond Dog on the right, and we're going to hear his story and why a professional baseball player, an MLB player, decided that he wanted to get into this Web3 world. So make sure that you join us on Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Well, we're going to shift gears and we're going to get to our seated soliloquy. And the seated soliloquy today is called Right On, like right on. It's the whole rock and roll mantra or theme. And we're even going to use some of our new music today. This soliloquy is dedicated to my guest, to Keeson Patel. When I found out about him and I read up on him and I heard his story, he's encountered adversity in his life. He'll tell you about it. In fact, we'll share it when he comes onto the show. Today, he's a boss. He might be the boss of me. We don't know. But he's a boss. And he writes his own ticket. But maybe people wrote him off. And maybe people have written you off before. That's why today the soliloquy is called Right On, as opposed to Right Off. Because people are quick to judge. People are quick to determine who you are and whether they should care. Maybe it's based on your title. Maybe it's based on the company you work for. How many times have you been to a conference? Remember conferences back in the day when we used to travel? And people would be staring at your name tag, determining whether you were important enough for them to talk to. And generally that was based on what they could get out of you, take from you, as opposed to what they could give to you, what they could contribute, or maybe based on what you could give to each other. But things are changing right now, as we live in a world that maybe is starting to judge you not based on what you say, but based on what you do, your actions, your integrity. In a transparent versus an opaque world, we are just as strong as our last transaction or interaction. And I use the word transaction because in the M&A world, which is the world that my guest lives in, how much does transparency play? How much does trust play? What role does integrity play as well? People are quick to judge. People are quick to evaluate based on metrics. But the thing about metrics, it's called the availability heuristic. The metrics that are easy to obtain, the metrics that are easy to measure, are often the ones that are not necessarily tied to the real return on investment, the real value, the pot at the end of the rainbow, the longevity, the potential, the net present value, if you will, of where a project really can go. So the next time somebody writes you off, your company, your brand, your value proposition, your pitch, number one, make sure you don't write you off. But number 2, ride on. Ride on. Prove them wrong. You know, I'm a vengeful mofo, to be honest. And nothing motivates me more than being able to prove somebody wrong and say, I told you so. Now it's time to get into our guest, Kison Patel. And I'm going to go from rock and roll to Don. I'm trying all the tracks available to me right now. So I hope he likes a little bit of dance pop, a little bit of, I don't know, EDM. Why not? We're trying everything today. Keeson Patel is the founder and CEO of Deal Room, a life cycle management software for financial transactions, as well as the author of Agile M&A, proven techniques to close deals faster and maximize value. In 2016, he started M&A Science, an educational podcast featuring behind-the-scenes stories from leading M&A practitioners. I feel like they should probably turn that into an HBO series, like Taxi Cab Confessions. Now, boasting over 25,000 monthly listeners and 400,000 plus downloads, Keeson has expanded the M&A Science platform to include a training program, M&A Science Academy, which allows others to learn practical how-tos they can easily apply to their own practices from active M&A professionals. I don't know much about M&A, but I feel like I'm going to get a lot more intelligent in just about 3 seconds. Keeson, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
I think we both got the memo to like wear our rock and roll. I don't know. Is that leather over there? I can't see.
It's not leather. It's some nice tech fabric, but it's a vest. So
I think might be faux leather. Would they call that feather? I'm not really sure. But welcome to the show. You know, I think you might be the first M&A professional on my show. So I'm excited to talk about an area that, you know, I guess I dream about, hopefully on the receiving end of a merger or maybe an acquisition more so than a merger. I have been acquired once. I did sell my first company, which I always say was in spite of myself, not because.
Definitely a learning experience.
So today is what's known as Hell. Believe it or not, it's Hell Has Frozen Over Day. So I have no idea what that means or how you celebrate it. But you know, I wonder what's the M&A equivalent of Hell Has Frozen Over. What is the one thing maybe in your space, in your industry, that maybe you thought would never happen, and it has happened? Maybe it speaks to the change. Maybe it speaks to the disruption. I would love to, you know, it's maybe a lateral question. I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
When your deal gets killed, that's hell. When you work really hard, M&A is not easy. There's a lot of tremendous amount of effort you put in. And as you go through that process, surprises could come up. You may identify a significant risk or something that could completely prevent you from moving forward. And that's when you hit that hell moment, because everything you've put in, all that time, resource, energy, maybe you've even hired people to contribute and they're compensating them. So you have expenses now tied into it. It's all lost.
And you're saying it with a smile on your face, which I get. I think it could speak to many different things, but maybe it speaks to the fact that you know, the more, I guess, the more it happens, the more you can anticipate, the more you can adapt, the more you can pivot. But the anticipation's got to help, right? In terms of knowing, you know, knowing what that worst case scenario looks like, having lived through it, and maybe, I guess, in the metaphor of Hell Has Frozen Over, maybe dressing a little bit more warmly, shall we say?
Well, it's definitely better to walk away from a bad deal than finish a really bad deal.
So I hope that this deal, being on the show today, will be a good deal, especially after we move through what I call fun facts. Now, The thing about fun facts is I try and ask my guests about three things about themselves that maybe might people might know, and I generally take their head and I superimpose it very poorly on on a piece of stock photography. But when somebody shares with me the fact that they were born with a club foot, I chose not to make light of that, especially combined with the fact that you didn't drop out of college, you failed out of college. And that's what inspired me, Kison, to start to think about the soliloquy, which I dedicate to you, right? Right on, as opposed to right off. You're born with a club foot. You failed out of college. I'm teaching. I teach college. I teach postgrad. I didn't know that you could fail people. Talk to us about this adversity, from your life, growing up, going through college, and where you must have been at that point that you failed out of college. That exact moment, did you know what would happen next? Did you know what you were capable of? I would love for you to just share that journey with us.
Yeah, I guess they're two different, distinct, unique challenges. Having a physical challenge because they had to go through a series of operations with a club foot at adolescent age, which, having immigrant parents, under no circumstance are you to miss any school, no matter what. So a lot of those procedures were always done over the summer, which instead of being out playing in the sun, softball, swimming, I'm at home recovering with this cast on my foot for the majority of the time. But you find other things to keep yourself busy. I got into reading at the time, but computers, things of these other hobbies to get introduced to and build your strengths around it. I think one thing that was funny is hobbled around on one foot, so I actually got really good at jumping. So by the time I got to junior high school, I could play basketball pretty well. So you find your strengths over one weakness. When it came to the academic challenges, I knew I had a short attention span, probably from early high school, knowing that for me to pass my exams, I had to study twice as hard. I had to read the book twice. And typically, you memorize the keywords, the bold words in your textbook. You did pretty good. But I knew it just took me longer to really do it to the point where I could pass my exams. When it came to college, that's when things became even more challenging. Your courses weren't always based on those textbooks keywords. You had to really pay attention if your course is very much lecture based. And that's where it became a big struggle, where I struggled to pay attention, keep that level of focus, no matter how hard I tried. I remember one of the early classes, I failed Art 101. And I was just so distraught over that this is the entry level class. And even though I tried to stay in class, take notes, I still failed. And, I remember just continuing. I had another course, same thing, where it's very much lecture based, and I failed that course at as well. And it's just frustrating. It's frustrating. You question your own intelligence. You really feel dumb, and even reflecting on it today, there's a level of clarity. It wasn't, looking back, success. I didn't drop out and jump to do a startup and build something successful. No, I struggled with school and ended up failing out of school. The school wrote me a letter letting me know that I am being dismissed for academic deficiency. That you get two failing semesters and you're out. And that was just a brutally hard thing to deal with. To bring that to your parents that I got kicked out of school. This is, and especially your immigrant parents with high expectations that you're going to go to college and complete it. It was difficult. It was difficult even thinking about what to do next from there, where I knew I had to get a job. And at the time, it was a pretty tough job market. So I ended up working for a family member that owned a small portfolio of fast food restaurants. And it wasn't an easy break. I think working with family has its own unique challenges that are far greater that going down the typical career path. So I started off just washing dishes, and that's the only thing I had to do. Even though I thought working with family, maybe I could accelerate career path sooner, that didn't happen. So I found myself really in this rock bottom situation where I didn't have funds or savings. I was working essentially a minimum wage job, washing dishes. I didn't even get the hours I wanted. I wanted at least a full-time job. I'm only getting 4 or 5 hours a day, beating myself up over it, trying to find something else. I wanted to get out. Every time I go apply somewhere, there's always a lot of other people applying, and I couldn't find anything. I couldn't land. And then I don't know what it was. Just one day, something changed. I remember I was working at the Subway franchise in the South Side of Chicago, and my aunt was always there. She was on staff to be part of the management or representation of the owner, make sure things are going smooth because it was a high volume location they had. And she'd always be on me, making sure, telling me to go faster, telling me to go faster. And just one day, I said, I'm not going to go down this path. I'm going to show them. I'm going to show them that. Let me show them what's up. And just came at it with a totally different attitude. This full charged. I'm going to give it 120%. And I came in there and did my task that typically take me 4 or 5 hours. Gave it my absolute top effort and knocked it out maybe an hour and a half. I go to my aunt and said, Auntie, I'm done with the dishes. Uh, she looks over, kind of looking over my shoulder like she didn't believe me. And she's like, okay, go sweep them up. And I go run through. I start sweep mop as fast as I can while doing a good job. Come back. I said, I'm done sweeping mop. What's next? And then she's like, go bust the tables. I run, charge, do that, come right back. She's like, go bust the sweep them up again. So I kept doing this. Next thing you know, she's like, why don't you go in the front? Go learn how to make sandwiches. And, just you make that progression. I think that experience too, you start learning things along the way. You learn one, this discipline that these are tasks I don't like doing, but I'm just going to mechanically push myself to do it. I'm going to uh, get comfortable doing these things I'm uncomfortable doing. And then when I got to interact with customers, that was another experience because this area, you had all different types of backgrounds, ethnicities coming in. Sometimes customers don't even speak English. You got to try to talk a little Spanish with them and get their order. And that's where I started learning things where it wasn't about asking people what they wanted. When you see people come to Subway franchise, it's a build to order line that you got to take them through. And if you sit there and ask them what they want, they think about it. They put a lot of consideration versus if you offer them that you want white or wheat bread, and you run them through with offer, they make their decisions quicker. Then they get them in this pattern where they're starting to say more inclined to say yes. They're interacting with you a little bit differently. And I remember realizing if I got them through, I can start throwing in the offer to go buy the bag of chips and soft drink for $1.50 extra. Go buy the cookies for 3 for $1. And I remember that my aunt's always like, "You talk too much to the customers." 'Cause I throw in a little small talk in there. I said, "Hey, but look, my register is a lot higher than everybody else's. I'm checking them out. Everybody's getting an upgrade," and that was something you couldn't argue with. But in short, in a course of the end of a year, I ended up managing 2 locations for them. Got offered a partnership in a store, but at the time, my goals were to get into a real estate career where I felt that this what do you call it? Not the sort of a handicap or that I have not having this college degree. Uh, that setback I had, I could overcome it. That in real estate, you don't have to have that. You can get by with a high school degree, get your license, and go practice as a real estate professional, and be able to make the big bucks, be able to build a successful career. I saw that as my avenue for success. Took my savings very much hard-earned savings I don't think my comp went up that whole time. I just got to work more hours, but I saved enough to pay for the real estate school to get my license. And then I ended up passing up that partnership opportunity and joined a real estate company called Baird and Warner in Chicago. That was a large privately held residential real estate company where I struggled. I struggled to sell a house. I was 21 years old, and people don't want to buy a house from a 21-year-old kid. I'm still living with my parents. I'm working at Subway part time. I remember making sandwiches from people and saying, "Hey, by the way, if you're looking to buy or rent a house, here's my card," and trying what I could. But I did it for about 6 months and didn't sell a single house. And then I, uh, I moved in a different direction. I think in that period, the one thing I realized I was really passionate about businesses. That's what really caught my attention. I grew up in a small town, Nebraska. My parents ran a business. I've always watched them. My dad wasn't proactive about getting me involved. He always pushed me to go focus on school, go focus on school. And I was fortunate enough, I found a gentleman there, Mike, who was doing commercial real estate, very adjacent to selling businesses. And learning from him, I got the inspiration to move in a different direction and joined a little startup advisory practice that was selling little businesses, little privately held businesses, and joined the company. They put me to work. They put me to work, and I found I found an area where I was challenged, learning, but also enjoyed it. I think one of the things I really liked was going through financials, sitting down with the prospective customers, reviewing, building a narrative around these financials and where the opportunity was, and getting some deals done. I closed a number of deals the first year working for the firm. Didn't feel optimistic about their future or strategy, that it wasn't really clear to me. They were trying to sell all kinds of businesses. Sometimes you're working with a large manufacturing company, and then you're dealing with a little convenience store. It was all over the place. Some businesses were stuff that's probably on its way out and weren't great businesses to market and sell, but they'd take everything. So I wanted to build a practice that really focused. And I left and I set out to start a practice around 22 years old in downtown Chicago. So the other thing is I want to be in the city. I was on the suburbs, and that led to a series of steps and progress and maturity to turn it into a successful practice up until the recession came around 2007, and then made a pivot and ended up getting into technology.
I mean, what a story. And as you were talking, I was thinking about that very common line that you hear, which is life is not what happens to you. Life is what happens for you, right? These things, this adversity, receiving that letter from school, from college, it wasn't happening to you. It was happening for you. And and it actually helped form the man that you are, the businessman that you are. Do you ever look back and go, well, that's all well and good, but I would have preferred not to have had to go through the squiggly path and the adversity in order to become successful?
No, it's where you've been makes you who you are. It's those challenges that toughen you up. That's what led to developing the discipline. When I look back and today, the values, principles that drove success, it's the discipline, learning pattern, and empathy. And the learning pattern was I had a different way of learning. It wasn't through this canned program that the university offered. They had a specific way, but over time I've learned that I need to create a pattern that works well for me. That's a combination of looking through the internet, looking at short form content, blog posts, Wikipedia, and those things, actually reading books, and reading books that I cared about, that I knew would help me develop skills, but also that allowed me to get better at focusing. And then learning from subject matter experts is a lot of where I learned from, which is why I enjoy podcasting. I get to interact with folks like you, Joseph, and be able to learn from your experience. And then I combine this and say, hey, when there's a certain thing I need to learn, I'm going to use this pattern to learn as quickly as I can to give me that information, either to make better decisions or problem solve, which is essentially the core skills in our day to day that we constantly have to exercise. And then the empathy comes in play with the way we interact with other professionals when you can build healthy relationships, and it's putting your own personal agendas to the side and take a moment to listen to the other person, understand what they're thinking, how they feel, why they feel that way, what are their goals, what are their challenges. Can you align yourself to help them achieve the things that they're looking to achieve first? And when you
It's
can able to do that, then people tend to reciprocate and want to help you in return.
I'm trying not to forget the thoughts that are in my head, because they're they're they mean a lot to me. I mean, I think about now how many people have ADHD, for example, which includes my son. and how we're learning finally in 2022, 21, 20, that people learn differently, that people are different. And it actually makes them, it doesn't make them different, it actually makes them special. It makes them better. It is a superpower, to quote my very good friend, Brian Fanzo. It's not just a power, it is a superpower. I found this quote for you, by the way, and I always find a quote for my guests. This is what I found for this episode, and there are enough people in the world who are going to write you off. You don't need to do that to yourself. And that was Susan Boyle, if you remember. She was, I think it was either Britain's Got Talent or
Yeah.
The X Factor, who was judged and poorly so, but became just an absolute star. I want to say two things, and I want to go back to your story because it's just fascinating to me. The first, and it's connected, and we'll certainly get into that as well. I mean, this show is about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing or a little bit of business or a little bit of M&A as well. But the thing that strikes me about you is you wrote a book called Agile M&A. That's a transferred epithet. You're the agile one. Um, Even in scheduling this, I needed you to move things around because I teach on a Monday. And so, wink, wink, this show is not actually live on Monday because I'm teaching right now. I'm teaching strategic communications at NYU right now. But even today, you adapted and you moved so quickly, and you never expressed. It's the equivalent of who I see from just having met you, that smile. You're always smiling. You just adapted, you just moved. And so agility is a key component, I guess, of who you are. I just wanted to say that before we get into the meat and potatoes, Kison. But I want to, first of all, I want to give you a little gift, if you will take it, which is your next book. I already have the title for the book. That's what I do. I come up with book titles for my guests. Would you like to hear it?
Please.
It's called Aunty, I'm Done with the Dishes. That's the name of your book. And it basically talks about the moment, the spark at which everything changed. And if you can bottle that spark, if you can bottle that moment, if you can try and figure out what happened, and that's my question to you. And maybe you don't want to say all of it because it's going to be in the book, which is, now you have a call to action. But what do you think it was, that moment that you got up in the morning and just something just clicked for you? What do you think it was that because that was the moment at which your whole life changed?
I don't know if it's a breaking point or feeling that I don't have options have ran out. I'm in this tough job market. I can't find another job. I don't have a college degree. All these things against you, and you're fed up, but you don't you don't want to be hasteful because it doesn't do anything. That doesn't help. What can you do? Well, let's show people we can do. Let me wash dishes. Let me show you that I can do this. I'm do this better than anybody else. And this relentless effort that every little thing I'm going to do, I'm going to be the best at. I'm going to be the best. I'm going to push it and I'm going to show you I can be the best at this every time. And I think that's where you're building a muscle of discipline, of getting comfortable doing these things you're otherwise uncomfortable, getting out of body.
You actually said something that I think is key, which is, it wasn't this job is beneath me. It wasn't like, why am I washing dishes when I could be doing X or Y or Z? So often in life, we're always looking ahead of someone. We're always looking at the next person instead of looking at ourselves in the mirror. What you said was, I am here, right now, and I'm washing dishes, and God damn it, I will be the best at washing dishes, or I will. And immediately you improve I can see the connection to M&A. I can see the idea of, especially when private equity gets involved, where efficiencies can be gleaned, where, often, unfortunately, sometimes jobs are lost, but there are always ways to make things better, cheaper, and faster. And I think a lot of it can be traced back to washing dishes. in your case.
That's true.
So we're going to move on, but first it is Monday. And so our correspondent on Monday is the incredible gregarious Narain. He sent in this vignette. As always, I haven't seen it, so hopefully he's not insulting me. So Kison will watch it and then we'll comment on it or see if it pertains to our conversation. If it doesn't, we'll move on. So let's hear what he had to say.
All right, everyone, welcome back. How are you today? This is Boulder, in case you've never been here before. But I wanted to give you a little bit of a chat today about making sure that when you build and design the best pitch that you possibly can, that you are focusing on answering the most common questions inside of your presentation. So one of the common mistakes that we make is we either over anticipate how much time we're going to have to do it, and so we think it's going to go on forever, or we put or shove everything into the appendix. But a good presentation sort of anticipates the kinds of questions that people are going to have. It answers them ahead of time, and it gives you a chance to sort of look like you're on top of the ball by having those answers ready. Now, an appendix is still a great thing, so have those extra slides ready at the end of your deck so that you can still answer those questions. But the best and most important questions, the questions that will block people from saying yes to you, should definitely be answered early and often inside of your normal presentation. Good luck. See you next week.
Well, I love the sound effects, and I love the actual. I need to buy that new iPhone because and he's wearing the leather jacket, so he got the memo as well. Kison, I think there is a connection back to what we're talking about because, the old quote, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." And so there is an element of being prepared, anticipating, right? Even the bad deals that we discussed when hell is frozen over, and it looks like hell was freezing over in Boulder. And then there's the opportunity. I would love to hear about moments maybe in your life where either preparation or opportunity or both, where preparation met opportunity, played a major role in accelerating your career, or to use the agile metaphor, was able to help you adapt, pivot, and change course.
I think that's about grit. It extends off the discipline that I've had these opportunities. I worked in an industry that's dominated by folks that went to top schools, top business schools, and I'm wanted to progress and find my way. So having big ambitious goals, but just putting the sheer effort behind it. Today I work with a team. We're working with large multinational corporations that are competitive contracts to work on their largest transactions. Simple philosophy. I just want to make sure we work harder than the competitors. That's it. When we work with them, they got requests for us. Let's show them we're faster. We want to be responsive and really identify these as our core value. But ultimately, that's what we do is we put the effort, and I show them. I'm doing the research. I'm looking at their annual report. I'm listening to the recent earnings call. I'm listening to the way their CEO is talking about some of their acquisitions. I'm studying up their about page, how they talk about their culture. I'm reading their Glassdoor reviews to understand how their employees are talking about their culture, the good and bad. I'm looking through blog posts and what they're currently in the relevant news. I'm looking through YouTube and trying to find some interviews, understand how their executives talk. What are some of the things that they've done and achieved and accomplished. Look through Wikipedia and understand what have been some of the notable history and moments that they've had, and you end up discovering some unique things. We do all this preparation. Well, I don't know what our competitors doing. Do they show up and just walk the same song and dance, or follow the same template? Ours is tailored. I can talk about their values. I can talk about our values and how theirs aligns. I can understand what their most largest strategic initiatives are and be able to build a narrative on how what we're going to do to create value for that organization is going to tie to the big initiatives that their topmost senior executives are striving for. That's where we win, is just putting that sheer effort and preparation. Again, it goes in discipline. Some people don't like doing all this extra work and prep, but that's how we win. And the same thing when I was advising M&A deals. I loved working in industries where you can get access to information and more of it, because that allowed me to do what I can do best, work harder than the other competitors, and be able to win these opportunities. When I got to a point where I was working with small financial institutions and selling community banks, which was a fun challenge to learn about how the regulatory system works, how these things are valued. But the best part was all their financials were public information on the FDIC's website. I didn't have to wait for the first meeting. I didn't have to sign a bunch of non-disclosures and things of that sort to build models for this company. I could show up on the very first meeting with a full preparation of what I believe their business is worth. It's done enough research, modeled it out, and have this front and center on the first meeting, which allowed me to demonstrate that I'm somebody that is going to work hard. So I think that's probably that view when you can build on some of these areas. You turn your weakness into strengths. And maybe it wasn't this, but let me build it out and make up for it in other ways. I think that just allows you to keep yourself strong and be able to beat the odds, right? Ultimately, the odds are always against you. I remember when I was doing my first contract, I was doing a franchise business and I was building it out. I think I was about 23 years old. And this is one of the franchise tanning salons in Chicago, LA Tan. And I got the funding and everything, and I went to go hire contractors to build this location out. I remember the first 3 contracts I had were way above the budget I had originally planned for. And I didn't know what I was stumped. I was like, "What do I do?" Like, these guys think I'm a young kid. I got, but parents' money. They don't know it's all loaned money. I got to pay this stuff back. They're trying to just take advantage of me. And I I did put the next effort in. I said, "Okay, these aren't good quotes. Let me get a 4th quote, a little bit better." I got 5th quote, 6, 7, 8, 9. I got up to 10 quotes, and then said, "All right, I got something here. I got one that's in my budget and looks like a great resource to work with." And that same philosophy I found applies in a lot of different ways. If you can put this additional effort to change those odds, could be applying for a job. Do you apply for 3 jobs, 5 jobs? Now it's so easy with LinkedIn. You keep clicking buttons. What's stopping you from applying for 50? Why are you waiting for one offer letter to accept it? Can you get to a position of leverage where you have 5 offer letters and can really find the best opportunity fitted for you? If we had to do a remodeling project before, and I remember the deal I made with the contractor is I love negotiating, purchasing, and bartering. They say, I want to purchase all the supplies that go into this project. We're going to do a high-end remodel finish for this 1-bedroom condo I have, but I want to pick every material out and order it. And that's where I took that same approach. I'm not going to look at the 3 vendors. I'm going to go everywhere. I'm going to go look at the different typical vendors, look online where it's easy to shop 10 of them out. And I might say, hey, this one's got the cheapest price, but I know better than buying from them because I might not see that product for months. So let me find the one with the best reputation that has a product in stock and have them price match the cheapest price I found. And just being able to, again, play the odds. If I can put the extra effort in, you can dramatically change your outcomes.
And it's such an important distinction. This idea of when you begin with this, I don't know if it's a submission or an admission or a recognition that the odds are against you. And it's true. It's like going into a casino. I mean, the people that lose money are the people that actually believe that they're going to win. That believe it's going to be their day. But when you come in and that you're on the back foot, that you're going to be fighting. That's the X factor. And for you, knowing that the odds were against you, that's what gave you the drive. Now, you said something so interesting. You set yourself up so beautifully, which is you spoke about company values. And yet you weren't always a believer in company values. So I would love to hear this story about what that light bulb moment was where you went from a non-believer to a believer in company values, and part 2, how that actually impacts the M&A world.
Yeah, there's a couple of lessons around that. One, I thought it was just a bunch of soft, fluffy crap that you're just throwing some buzzwords around. Today, it's a completely different view. Today, we look at company values that you look at your ambitious goal you're trying to achieve. And if you reverse engineer what it's going to take to achieve those goals, you should be able to identify these specific traits in your team that you're going to need to achieve those goals. And that's why it's so important for us to identify people that have these common values that we want to bring into our organization because they'll be able to assimilate and be aligned and have the skills and the traits needed to achieve goals. So that's big shift. I think some of the early things that I learned around that started with just management approach. Used to have a very much, and maybe we default to this top down management approach where you have marching orders, you tell what to do. I remember that retail business was where I learned a lot of these fundamental practices because it was a sizable, about 8, 10 employees that worked out of there, and they were younger. A lot of them were college students that worked in this business. And I remember my problem I noticed was the store cleanliness was lacking. I went down there, laundry was a mess, the equipment looked messy, the rooms and so forth. Like, this doesn't provide a good experience that we're striving for to the customers. And you send the marching orders. You got to do better. You got to clean this up. Why is this dirty? Blah blah blah. It took me a while to realize people do not want to be told what to do. So it took a totally different approach. And this is maybe something I've read, one of these books, one of these leadership or management books. But I wanted to take the team, get them together, and I started with real simple. What's your purpose? Why do you come here?
Mm.
This took a little while of some conversations to extract this out, but ultimately we concluded to providing a top level customer experience, right? As we call the ultimate customer experience. Then we break it down. What does that mean? Right? Again, I have no input in this. I'm only asking the questions. And the team comes with a variety of key things that the place has to have friendly people that work there. The customer should be greeted as soon as they come in. Staff should be knowledgeable about their products. They should make thoughtful recommendations. They should make sure the place is immaculately clean. Now, they're using this language. And then break that down. What do we need to do to achieve those things? And then the cleanliness came up and they said, hey, maybe we should have a midday cleaning routine. So it's not all stacked up at the end of the day. Maybe we need some better equipment. These mop heads are so bad, like nobody wants to use it. And then they when they bring up their ideas, they're committed on it. That's the one thing I realized quickly. You get somebody from the team, they bring up their idea, they take ownership of it. And things changed quickly when we started taking more of this essentially a bottoms up approach to evangelize the team to do the right thing. You know what needs to be done, but let's align around it. Let's bring your ideas. Let's commit to them. And it just changed the whole approach. And that business did extremely well, moving to that type of management approach, even bringing in a manager in there that followed that same pursuit, was able to build such a nice top level team with all A players and watch revenues consistently grow and grow and grow. So that's which is one of the approaches when we look at creating more of that dynamic in aligning that with what I see today that creates a positive work environment, creating that platform where everyone's voice is heard. Doesn't matter who you are. It's not about the hierarchy of roles. It's about your ability to influence and providing that opportunity for everybody to be able to share their ideas, but also point out problems. We want to see the cracks before they blow open and we fall through. The other thing is acknowledging achievements. When you take that time, create that culture, because that's what people drives people more than the compensation that they get, is that they feel worthy, that they're creating value for the organization, that the organization values it, their colleagues value it. So getting the acknowledgement for achievements, and then creating an environment where you feel you worked amongst friends was the other big thing. Having the groups together, we had monthly goals. If they reached a monthly goal, they had a budget to do whatever they wanted. It could be a party, it could go out somewhere, do a social event, anything, bowling, and that allowed them to have time where they could socialize and get to know each other outside the workflows of the business. And I think that was really important because it creates a level of comfortability where we feel part of it even more. We have these personal relationships also. It's easier for me to go collaborate with somebody or tell them what I really think. So I think those were some of the key elements learned from that early experience. And it just evolves with like, now can we define this particular way of working around common values that we have? And that really should align to the goals that you're trying to achieve.
It doesn't seem like I'm talking to an M&A person. I mean, these are questions about customer experience and culture and employee engagement. I mean, this is the world that I live in. And it's so refreshing to hear this from someone who works in the M&A field, maybe thinking about efficiencies and body counts and, an EBITDA. Are you, is this the norm? Is this what it is to be in the agile M&A world, or are you the exception? And as I often say, the word exception, lives in a word called exceptional. So see what I just did there? How I brought in the book Agile M&A.
M&A is changing, especially in the last 5 years. We're shifting from the traditional finance focus. I model the numbers out. We have a very plan driven approach to go execute and capture this intended value. That might have worked in the old days when you're buying a bunch of hard assets and buildings and things of that sort. Today, things are shifting quickly. It's morphing into a people focused M&A approach. When we look at the biggest problems in M&A, they're related to people. To make M&A successful, it's all about people aligning around goals, collaborating, staying focused on the highest priority tasks, being motivated, being happy. When you take this traditional approach and apply it to today's businesses, they're very information dense about what people's contributions are. Think of the tech startups and the way they do things. And you take that traditional approach, it's very disruptive. You're changing a lot of things that people find value in their way of working, and it's disruptive, it's frustrating, and it could cause people to find other opportunities, leave that organization along with a lot of value with them. And companies are realizing that poor people experience results to pissed off people. They're going to quit and you're going to lose a lot of value. You can, from the early beginnings, align people, even around the values, the cultural understanding the end state, what it's going to actually take to achieve that end state, the goals. We're acquiring you. Yes, we're going to acquire you, but I want you to be part of this journey, even if it means your role is going to get eliminated. But don't worry about it. We're going to make this a big project that you're going to get paid well on, and we're going to help you transition to the next role. We're going to help you find opportunities either within the company, or we'll support you if it's an opportunity outside the company. But this is what we're trying to achieve. You're important to be part of it. Let's make that happen. That's what it comes. Like, people have to be aligned and they have to be motivated. And it doesn't. The end could be bad. Some of these deals, you do combine companies and eliminate roles, but it's for the greater growth that they can come together. And there's other roles that end up expanding and growing. It all depends on the strategy, but it's all about the people at the end of the day. And you leave them in a state when the deal's completed and they have to do this heavy lifting to achieve the goals, and be able to keep people excited and motivated about it, all while keeping the customer in mind. Both companies have their respected way of creating value for the customer. What does that look like when both organizations come together and keeping clear sight of that customer and that the value and experience that they need to preserve or enhance for the customer?
I mean, it still seems, as I said before, the word is exceptional, to see deals being thought of and conceptualized and executed, and then fulfilled. I'm curious as to two final questions about M&A changing. One is, how has M&A been affected in the last 2 years, 2020 through present day, given this this insanity, given the fact people aren't traveling, given everything being conducted in a virtual environment? How has M&A been affected, and has that change been for the better or for the worse?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the response was, people are, how are they going to get deals? They're so used to going on site, doing diligence, meeting people, but we didn't see the volume slow down. We've seen the volume increase, and people adopted rather quickly. They realized they didn't have to be in person. They could do a lot of this stuff through a series of Zoom calls. They could run that process. They could do the onboarding. They could welcome employees through a virtual environment. So I think that was a big thing. I think there's a lot of efficiency gains adopting technologies to be able to manage the process, challenge yourself to be more efficient. There was a lot more pressure because of the increase of volume and competitiveness that happened with the post COVID environment, that it really pushed companies to be as efficient as possible to keep up and be competitive, which means they're adopting new tools, new technologies, new practices. So it ultimately put pressure to innovate, and I think it was a net win for the industry itself. I think we've seen more interest in what actually drives the results, partly because companies are paying more for their acquisitions, that they need to be more certain about how they're going to extract value from it, which also drives more clear focus on keeping the people aligned so that they can produce the results that's outlined in their investment thesis.
So I have one more question for you, and then I want to make sure that I talk about your scholarship program and make sure people know about, again, repeat the podcast, which is, what does M&A look like, and what will it look like in the metaverse, in this new Web3 NFT crypto world that we're living in? How will people meet? How will deals be done? I'm just curious as to
I don't have
whether
the
we're seeing.
exciting answer for you. I'll give you a heads up on that. I honestly, Joseph, our industry is probably 20 years behind times. It is really for us. The step one right now is getting companies off of Excel. Can we get organizations to stop using Excel to manage multi-billion-dollar transactions? That's where we're working with in 2021.
So forget about Google Docs, forget about, Airtables.
We're just using that for certain use cases. There's a little bit of sensitivity with M&A when you transact, that you always need a point in time reference. So you always want to be able to reference what was represented at a certain time, and you don't have that real time editing capability. But I what I see is some of the things that, think of the sales industry, marketing industry, that are using adopting today. That's what's coming next in M&A. So when we think about some of this AI analysis, that you can record your calls and be able to extract a lot of insights from it, stuff like that. Can we use AI to summarize documents? So if I'm tasked with doing diligence on a company, I'm able to power through thousands of pages in a much shorter time. If I have to review HR contracts or employment agreements, customer agreements, and they're all in the basic template, but I really, really need to extract what are the unique terms that were changed. That's gonna The AI solutions are gonna be able to help with that kind of contract analysis use case, which we're starting to see emerge, but becoming more mainstream. Seeing some of these BI solutions that we see marketing and sales using, these nice dashboards to give them insights, give them a lot of data that they can then take action and make decisions on. Same thing with M&A, being able to take these traditional models and project management workflows, but incorporate the BI solutions. So now you can apply that to the deals you're doing to get better insights, staff your deals better, get a better visualization of what the respected organization's org charts look like, so you can plan your human resources post transaction better. So we see a lot of potential, but it's all stuff you see around. It's just those things are going to be applied to M&A over the next 20 years.
I feel like we've come full circle, but something that I've often said in my own keynotes is that this is a people business, a relationship business powered by technology. And I really see that coming through so clearly with you. And certainly with respect to this idea of agile M&A, that we're still talking about culture and values and human beings. And yet we're also recognizing that technology can power and propel and streamline and supercharge this whole process. Keeson, I'm so happy that I stretched myself because I'm not an M&A guy. Although if someone would like to acquire Joseph Jaffe is not famous, I will accept cryptocurrency. I'm just letting you know, just manifesting, putting it out there. But Keeson, let's talk about a couple of things that I think is amazing about M&A science, about your company. First of all, there is a foundation, a scholarship program to promote diversity, and you can find out more at mascience.com. Tell us a little bit about this.
Sure. That's been talked about in our industry for a while, that there's a lack of diversity, having just women, people of diverse backgrounds. And if we just noticed that organizations weren't taking the best action, throwing quotas on it, or some of these things are a bit ridiculous when there's a shortage of talent in the industry with diverse backgrounds. So for us, as operators of a online school that's led with practitioners that are active practitioners in the industry that teach the courses. We did put together a world-class program with all the templates, resources, and what we wanted to do is create an opportunity for those that maybe they're just generally interested in M&A and want to see what's outside of the stereotypes of the investment banking, workshops. There's a whole magnitude of other careers that range a whole different wide of skills and personalities, and be able to expose them to it, but also get them access to this training so that if they're interested, they can progress and actually get a career in the industry. Really want to provide that opportunity, and the industry needs it. The diversity is so important because when you think about the M&A transaction, or organizations are very diverse. So you sort of need that to help with a lot of these people-oriented aspects to make a deal successful.
100%. If you want to find out more and connect with Keeson, you can do that through LinkedIn. Find out more about the scholarship program at mascience.com and find out more about his company. Subscribe to his podcast, and find out everything you needed to know about not just M&A, but where it's heading, but maybe we're too afraid to ask. And finally, buy Agile M&A, proven techniques to close deals faster and maximize value. Here I am, a marketer talking about M&A, thinking I want to spend more time now in M&A and specifically Agile M&A. And I'll tell you who else wants to as well is Chuck Norris. And here's what Chuck Norris had to say about you, Keeson.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
And we will be back tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show. And if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.